Hello everyone, after 4 years and 2 COVID delays, we finally have a new Saw movie, or at least a new one from the Book of Saw anyways. This is the 9th entry in the series, and this time it stars Chris Rock, Max Malinga, and Samuel L. Jackson. We also have our boy, Darren Lynn Bousman, returning to direct. For those of you who don't know, he directed Saws 2 through 4 and wrote the second film. This film is less of a sequel and more of a spin-off. It's distinct from the rest of the Saw series in both tone and plot. I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but the original Saw series, as Death Note, the Netflix movie, was connected to Death Note, the anime. The plot of Spiral sees Zeke, the son of a highly regarded police detective who has been castigated by his peers for reporting his former partner's corruption. Zeke is paired with a young, kiss-ass detective who wants to work with Zeke because of his father's reputation. The pair are tasked with finding out who is behind a series of Jigsaw copycat murders that exclusively target corrupt cops. Given it's a new release, I'm assuming many of you want to know if it's worth a watch, and the shorter answer is probably not. The theaters have been closed for a long time, and it's been a while since we've had a mainstream release, so if you're bored, go for it. It has its highlights, and it's not the worst way to spend 93 minutes. Now, if you're looking for something a little more in-depth, but still spoiler-free, this movie is only tangentially related to the Saw series. He existed in this world, but he played no actual role in the film, and it's the first Saw film that doesn't feature Tobin Bell. And that should give you a sense of how different this film is from the rest of the series. Many people have compared it to David Fincher's Seven, which I think is very unfair. The comparisons are mostly made because of very shallow similarities. It's a dark, dingy atmosphere where a new hungry cop is partnered with an old cynical cop who doesn't want a partner, and they try to find a serial killer who kills people in brutal and symbolic ways. But that's about it. Unlike Seven, this film suffers from terrible conflicts in tone and inconsistency in character. The biggest difference between this film and the rest of the Saw series is that Saw has always been something between a dark thriller and a gory horror movie. Spiral is somewhere between a police procedural and an edgy thriller. The film feels like a PG-13 police procedural, interrupted by soft R saw traps. Speaking of the saw traps, there are very few of them in this film. If I can remember right, there were around 5 or 6, and most of them were underwhelming, although there were 2 solid additions that I actually thought were quite good. The traps feel more like an obligation rather than a real part of the film. They are less gory than most Saw traps, and they feel a lot less visceral than normal. To put this in perspective, Saw 3D, which featured the most traps to be fair, had 11 traps, which was pretty significant. The fact that we're down to 5 or 6, we're getting down to, Saw 1 numbers, and considering this film was made for $20 million, not $1.2 million, it's a significant drop in the number of traps and the quality of the traps. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest problem in the film was the inconsistent tone and characters. These are interwoven issues. The film opens with a very underwhelming trap and moves on quickly to Chris Rock in the middle of an undercover police sting, while heavy hip-hop music plays in the background. Zeke is presented as a cool cop who doesn't play by the rules but gets results, and then is presented as a sympathetic figure who is castigated by the police. It's such an odd tonal shift that's then immediately followed by him cracking jokes with his partner, saying that his wife will cheat on him and that he went through a bad relationship and that relationships don't work. It's like Chris Rock just wanted to slip in a tight 5 into the movie.
Women control the whole thing, man. Women control, they're so fucking cool. Women have male friends. Women have male friends, platonic friends. What the fuck is that shit about? That's like the biggest scam in the world. No man ever looked at a woman and said, damn, she fine. Damn, she is so fine. She's so fine, I want to make her my friend.
Zeke is supposed to be this senior, weathered cop, but he's a hothead, and the young cop is just an exposition device who has no personality. Zeke's relationship with his dad is also weird because Chris Rock is 60 years old, playing a weathered older cop, and he's also trying to work through daddy issues, and it doesn't come off as deep, but instead comes off as muddled and uninteresting. Also, I should mention that Samuel L. Jackson, who plays Chris Rock's father, is barely in the film. It reminds you of those low-budget Steven Seagal movies where he's on set for 1 or 2 days so they can put his face on the poster. Spiral is also aggressively contemporary. We hear a lot about iPads, hashtags, emojis, Twilight, and that's fine, but it's a little bit cringy hearing it from a 60-year-old cop on a Saw movie. The police chief literally slams down a manila envelope and shouts, "You're too close to this." Next, there's a couple of... and that line just really made me laugh. Next, there are a couple of nitpicks that I want to make. The first being that they changed the sound of the voice scrambler, and it sounds goofy. I don't know if it's just me, but it sounds like Mia's voice scrambler from Death Note.
Hello, Detective Boswick. I want to play a game. The 3 train is arriving in 2 minutes.
I am Kira. If this video was being aired on April 18th at exactly 5:59 p.m. as I requested, then the time now is 5:59:47.
It is up to you to decide if this will be your final stop. You have taken the witness stand many times and railroaded innocent people with your lies, putting them away in jail.
Second, Zeke says that Jigsaw never targeted cops, which is patently false. Detective Matthews was tested for being a dirty cop in Saw 2 and was then featured in Saw 3 and 4. Riggs, a police officer and SWAT member, was the protagonist of Saw 4, so it's a dumb statement that Chris Rock as a Saw fan should know is untrue. And finally, the last big criticism of the film is the twist ending, which is incredibly underwhelming. I was critical of the twist in Jigsaw because it felt cheap, but this twist is just a nothing. When you find out who the killer is, it's not surprising, and not because it's obvious who the killer is, but because I had no investment in who the killer was, or any suspicion of who it could be. There's no driving to the desert moment. It's just like, fine, I guess that's the killer, this is the ending, who cares? You know, there's no surprise, it's not an unbelievable moment when you find out who it is, there's no revelation. It's just okay, I guess he's the killer, that's fine. It's just a nothing burger. Before ending, I would like to try and say something positive about the film. There are a few good lines in the film, and there are a few good traps, and there's a few funny lines. That concludes the positive points about the film and the video. I hope you enjoy the video. If you did, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments how you felt about the film. Until then, I'll see you all in the next one. This is Just Add Nuance, signing out.